Hey everybody, I'm Gilad Goldstein and I'm here with Kenra Professional today to show you how to create ghost layers. So ghost layering is a technique that you can do on dry hair. And just to clarify, it's a technique, not a haircut. So I'm going to show you how you can take fine, medium textured hair and create a fuller appearance with internal layering with the ghost layers technique. So if you're excited to learn something new, maybe a new technique for your clients that you can use in the salon, get your notebook, grab a mannequin, and let's get started. So the ghost layers technique is done on dry hair. We want to make sure that we can see the densities that we're cutting so that we create soft internal layers rather than something very choppy and visible. Because we want to create a healthy looking haircut, we're going to start by trimming the ends overall. So I'm going to hold the hair in a very low elevation and just make sure to cut any of those dry or dead ends off. Really, the idea behind the ghost layers is that we're creating movement in the haircut without creating something that's super committal, like you're not going to have to grow out choppy layers for months on end, but you're able to add that movement to your hair. So even if you have a finer texture or a texture that really, you don't want to cut a lot of layers into, you can still get that movement and feel like you have a really fun, fresh style. But I do think it's important to give any of the dry or damaged ends a nice trim, because even if we're going to add movement in there, we want to make sure that those ends look really healthy and full. And you can really see what I'm cutting. It's more of this hair that's very transparent. So this is the stuff that's really not doing anything on our haircut. When I'm in the salon and I'm really trying to chat with my clients about what they need to trim off while also respecting how they feel, I like to really show them that while they are losing a little bit of length by taking off these transparent ends, it's really not that much overall. Like, you can barely see it. You're just kind of hanging on to that length. So make sure to communicate that dryness and those ends that are a little bit frayed or a little bit transparent, they're not adding to the length, but you can create a fuller look for your client by trimming those off and getting a nice solid perimeter. Now that we have these ends looking much healthier, much thicker, we're gonna go in with the ghost layers technique. Now before we start actually cutting the hair, we want to think about the hair in zones. So we're working with zone 1, which is the first third of the hair from the roots, zone 2, which is the mid-lengths, and then zone 3, which are the very ends, or the last third. So just imagine dividing the length of the hair strand into 3 parts. Each part is going to have a different effect. So if you want to just diffuse the ends, you're going to work in zone 3. If you want to cut a lot of weight out, you'll work in zone 2. You should really never work in zone 1 unless you're trying to create a lot of chunky or like piecey textures for a disconnected look. So today we're working in zone 2 and zone 3. We're essentially trying to create a shape within a shape. So if a client, let's say, wanted the look of a butterfly cut, but didn't want to commit to the layers, or maybe they don't have the exact density to create that, we can use the ghost layering technique to achieve that look. Now you're probably wondering what I just did here. I'm actually pulling the hair to the front because in a cut where we're doing layers, we usually pull to the front to create that face framing. What I'm doing now is working in the final zone of the hair, or zone 3, and I'm just slightly closing my shear. Now notice, I'm going to bail out. Close the shear, bail out. Close it, bail out. Now as we comb the hair out, you can see the hair that's been removed. So while I've created layers in the hair, they're all being done internally. So if you think about it, we've just created a shape within a one-length shape. So we can still maintain the appearance of this one-length hair and keep the fullness, but also add the movement so that when we wear the hair wavy, or if we want to style it out, now you'll have that added movement to really enhance the look. So on the other side, I'm going to repeat the same thing, and it's important to maintain that balance. So this is where the zones are really helpful. So if I didn't keep in mind that I'm working in zone 3, I might actually put my shear in too high and I'll end up with a lot of uneven layers. So by remembering that I'm working in zone 3, it makes it easier to achieve a visually balanced result, because it's really easy to go a little crazy or to add a little bit too much layering on one side. So that system will really help you stay organized when you're working this technique on your client. Now also think about how you're communicating this with your guest. So they might see you pulling out your shears, cutting these strands out, and they might think, what's going on here? So it's important to communicate that the ghost layering technique is just an internal technique. So there's not going to be a lot of those visible layers that are happening on the surface of the hair. And there are ways that we can avoid creating any of that surface texture or frizz. The first thing to think about is not creating the ghost layers on the very top strand. So this section of hair that falls over should remain mostly one length. That way, no matter what the shape is that we've created internally, that hair is going to fall on top, and it's going to give the movement but still create that one length look. Now, if I think of the people that this is good for, think of like a long bob. With a client who has finer hair and wants that long bob with a little bit of bevel or shape, you can use the ghost layering technique to simply take the section, hold the hair into a graduated elevation, so that would be below 90 degrees, and then working in zone 3, I'm just going to notch as if I'm creating a graduated bob. So that's the angle that we would create if we were cutting that long graduated bob. But look, as I comb that out, the hair is still falling to that one length. So now they have that sense of the graduation without actually committing to a ton of excess layering. Now, because I want to maintain a lot of fullness in this haircut, I'm going to be over directing the back. So this is going to help me to create a nice shape that rounds out and is going to make the very back look a lot fuller. So I'm pulling the hair to the sides now, working in the final third of the hair, just taking out small channels to create that ghost layering. And you can see how fast this technique goes as well. So you might also be wondering, like, could I do this on one of my clients who has thick hair? And the answer is yes. You would be a little bit more aggressive with your technique though. So because we're working with a client who has finer hair or a little bit less density, we don't want to go so aggressively into the hair and then cut a lot of heavy chunky layers. But if I have someone who has very thick hair, you can be a little bit more intentional, and that's where the zone 2 is going to come in handy. So when I think of zone 2, it's going to help collapse the shape. So depending on where you insert your shear, that's going to make a really big difference in the overall appearance of the haircut. You're cutting longer strands away in zone 2 than you are in zone 3. So when I'm doing zone 3, it's to create that movement, diffuse the ends. Zone 2 is to collapse the shape in and remove a lot of weight. So that's another way too to really customize it based on your client or even just the area of the head. Sometimes I have clients who have a little bit more hair in the nape and then maybe not so much in the crown. And I find that's a really common challenge that a lot of our guests have, and it's why they can't achieve volume. So understanding where to leave the hair by doing ghost layers is going to give them more styling options. Because if you just do traditional layering, you're going to risk taking away too much hair. They're not going to get the volume that they're looking for. So what if your client wants to have a little bit more layering? Because she still has her fullness and she still has that one length appearance, but she wants to now see a little bit more of that layering while still having a ghost layered effect. So I'm going to use the technique in a traditional layering method to achieve kind of a softer version of a butterfly cut. You can see our elevation is raised, so it's nice and high, but instead of doing the blunt cut, we're going to do ghost layering. Now we're going to be doing this from the underneath of the strand. So at the very tips, I'm just closing my shear onto the strand, and you can see just the small amount of hair that was taken off. Now I'm going to add more hair into that first subsection. We're going to slowly continue to add more hair into this first subsection, and we're over directing to a stationary guide just like we would with a traditional butterfly cut. And I'm just simply pinching to create soft ghost layers. So as this starts to build up the shape, you're going to notice that we have a nice soft layered look in the front without it feeling quite as chunky or as heavily layered as a traditional butterfly cut. So you're able to get that fun face framing, that fun feathered look, but you don't have to commit to a lot of extreme layering. Just remember when you're ghost layering in the front to cut from underneath. Once you release the section, it's just a very soft layer in the front. And now if you want to add a little bit more movement, you can always go in and continue with your ghost layers. So I would just go in zone 3, slice a little bit of hair, create the space, and that's going to look really beautiful once we go in to style the haircut. Now take a look at the layered line that you created. What you want to see is softness at the very ends. So because it's a ghost layered look, everything should fall very soft and you shouldn't have a lot of blunt lines. Make sure you're looking at your design as you cut. So I can see here, I want to remove a little bit of the bluntness, just a little point cutting to refine that, and then comb the hair into natural fall and just ensure that we have a nice soft look. Pulling it to the front has caused the layering to be a little bit shorter in the front and gradually get longer as it moves towards the sides. So it's just enough layering to give our client that butterfly effect she's looking for without getting quite as choppy or as heavy as a traditional cut. So now that we have the ghost layers in the hair, you can see already the nice little airy movement that we've created. So you're not looking for anything too visibly choppy or visibly heavy, but we're looking for these internal layers that as we pull out the hair, you can see that kind of come out, add a little bit of volume and airiness, and it's perfect for fine hair textures to medium textures who just want a little bit of movement without that heavy commitment to layers. Now to show off the layers, I always recommend adding a little bit of a wave. So especially with our guests who are looking for volume, adding a little bit of curl can give them that voluminous look without adding extensions, without doing a lot of crazy cutting. So this is gonna be great because we're marrying the ghost layers with our styling to create a cool result. I'm gonna be working with a thermal protection. So this is Kenra Heat Block. I find this is really great whenever I'm looking for something that needs to last a long time. So there's a number of sprays you can use for heat protection, but when I need something to last, or if I need to build a little extra volume into the hair, the Heat Block is perfect for that. So I'll spray the entire hair with the spray before I go in to curl it, and you can feel it in your hands as it gets more dense. So for our clients who have fine hair, I love providing this product to them because they can really feel the difference immediately about how it almost like makes the hair strand feel larger in your hand. So try it out yourself, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna spray all of the strands. Before I spray the next section, running my fingers through just to evenly distribute the product. It's also helping me to determine if I need to add more spray. So sometimes we just like spray the section before we go, but I encourage you to put your hands in the hair, spread the product through, and feel like, does it feel more dense? Do I need to add a little bit more product? So I can feel that it's a little bit slippery still up here, and that means I need to add a little bit more hairspray to create that texture. So that's a really good trick for your fine hair clients. A little bit of the Heat Block spray to build the density. It's funny because you can actually see it building up on camera as I'm putting in more spray. So look at that in the mirror as well. Your clients will be able to see how the results are really building volume for them. Now let's do a really fast wave technique that's going to be very easy to achieve in the salon. I'll be working primarily with the wide tooth comb. So we're going to section off the bottom from the top. And I'm doing that just by taking a horizontal parting all the way around the head. So we have our top section and our bottom section. Now remember, we've already sprayed the product that we need to add the hold into the hair. So I'm starting with vertical subsections, and I'm gonna work the curls away from the face. So we're gonna hold the hair at a lower elevation, especially on the sides. So if you're ever working with blow dries, and you remember if you blow dry the hair too high on the sides, it creates kind of a puffy look. So I don't like to elevate too high on the side sections because I don't want to create a puffy appearance. I just want to add a little bit of movement to the hair. And I'm just using my clamp to create large curls that move away from the face. Now before you release the section, I'm twisting the tip of the iron underneath and then pulling out towards the ends. Now, this is a really great trick because it polishes the ends, and this is something that we don't think about because whenever we're doing curls, we're like, oh, I want the ends to look straight, I want them to look bouncy, but sometimes we don't think about the final finish on the ends of the hair. And especially with our clients who want their hair to look fuller, we have to pay extra attention to the ends so that we can make them look full. So I'm gonna twist underneath the section, and then I'm pulling down, letting the heat from the iron smooth the ends, and that's gonna give it a really beautiful polish that'll put them together and create a fuller appearance in the hair. For the back sections, we're gonna split the hair in half. So I'm gonna take this top section, and we'll clip that out of the way. Now, if you want to create the same types of curls as you did on the sides, you can, but at the very bottom of the hair, I like to make it look a little fuller with a bump curl technique. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the strand of hair in the middle. So it's an entire section. You can see it's a pretty large section. I'm not too worried about working with small sections here. And I'm going to work with my iron to bump the ends under. So I'm letting that heat up, and then I'm seeing where I can go and create the opposite wave. And now I'm just wrapping the hair around the iron gently, letting the product and the heat create this little bend. Now I'm moving my fingers to hold that little curve, and we're gonna create one more undulation at the top. Now, once you release your iron, you'll see that you have this really beautiful S-wave pattern. And it's great when you're trying to create something that looks full and something that feels a little flatter at the very bottom, because sometimes this technique will split the ends and make it look thinner. So I want all the ends to feel together and full. By bumping the ends this way, it's gonna make the haircut seem even thicker. The key is to let the heat do all the work for you. So make sure you have enough of the product in the hair. And again, I use the Kenra heat block, so it's a strong thermal hairspray. And you can see, because I have the product and the heat from the iron, how we can get this really beautiful bump wave in the hair. Now you can let this cool down separately, or as it's cooling, you can comb them together. But check out how this creates kind of a three-dimensional wave effect. So you can even see this is going out, in, out. And we did that all intentionally with the iron. Now I'm choosing to comb this out because I want to maintain a lot of length here. So if I keep this all separated, the sections aren't going to marry together quite as nice. So try to comb it out and let it set, and then you'll have this nice little wave underneath the hair. Now I'm going to take the top section, and we're going to do a slightly different curl on top. And by slightly different, I just mean doing the curls you did on the side. So now we're going to continue with that same technique, holding large sections of hair and curling away from the face. Remember to heat up those ends so that they get nice and polished. So we created the hair on the sides. I'm gonna comb this out. We're gonna see what it looks like. So let's comb out. So you can see how bumping the ends, it now looks really full and solid towards the bottom. That's the key to making the ghost layers stand out. You wanna have a nice solid perimeter, and now all the movement from the internal layers is gonna show off even more. We're gonna continue the same pattern that we did on the sides, so curling the hair away from the face at a low elevation. For the front sections, you have options. So if you wanna create a curtain bang effect, I like to pull the section forward and curl the hair in front of the face. Now, I love doing this for my clients who wanna keep all their length, because if we cut a curtain bang, you're creating a lot of shortness, and it is kind of a commitment. So by over-directing the hair forward as we're curling, we're able to create that really flattering face frame curvature that is going to make the style stand out. And I'm gonna do both sides of the front first so that I can make sure that they're balanced as they cool down. Because the worst thing is creating a whole style and combing it out, realizing you have to redo a bunch of sections. So remember, for the front, pull the hair forward and then curl away from the face. Once the hair is seated up, twist the tip of the iron underneath the section, and then pull the ends out. Now all you have to do is quickly go through the rest of the top section and curl away from the face. So we have all of our curls in, and now we're just gonna comb them out. And just bumping the very ends under as the final step to polish the hair. So now that the hair is all styled out, you can see how the ghost layers are really popping out and really are enhanced by the wave. So we have still a one length effect on the haircut, but throughout we have so much movement. There's a lot of internal layering that we've created that we can pull out, and it just creates a really beautiful movement for fine to medium hair textures who are looking to keep their hair one length and full, but still get that effect that they have some sort of layering and movement in the hair. And as you can see, this really gives them that look. The final touch to the style is going to be the Kenra volume spray. So I'm going to use it to pull the layers out a little bit more, create something a little more editorial, but you can also tell your clients that if they want to achieve even more volume, use a little bit of hairspray, spray the surface of the hair, and then pinch. It's a really good way to pop out some of those internal layers and give a little bit more of a whimsical movement to the cut. And that's the ghost layers haircutting technique. So remember, this technique is really great when you're looking to enhance movement in the hair without creating a drastic change and keep a full one-length appearance. So think of your fine hair guests or your guests with medium texture that are looking for a subtle change but don't want to go as intense as, let's say, a butterfly haircut. Remember to think of the hair in zones, so you have your zone 1, 2, and 3, and each of them where you create ghost layers is going to give you that diffusion or that weight removal. So customize it for your clients. So I really hope you enjoyed this technique. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, let us know in the comments, and follow Kenra Professional for more, and I'll see you in the next video.